Hi friends, I have been reading a book that is quickly going to be moving up to my top 10 favorite books. It is really, really good. And the reason I love it so much is because it teaches us how to access a power higher than ourselves, right? Like we have all felt this experience of trying to do something, following our dreams, and feeling like we're just not capable of it. We're not consistent enough. We're not patient enough. We're just not able to really reach those things that we want to reach or that we feel inspired to go for, or the goals that we want to keep. And this book is all about the principles that help you connect to a power higher than your own, because we all know we are pretty weak on our own, and we are not consistent, and we just sometimes have hard days and hard situations and difficult things that happen, and we just can't do it all on our own. And so this book is just all about that, those principles that help you access that higher power. And if you're wondering what the book is, it's called Alcoholics Anonymous, their big blue book. It is really, really good, and it has great stories and just walks you through really powerful principles. And one of the stories is by the founder of Alcoholics Anonymous. His name is Bill Wilson, I believe. So in chapter 1, I think it's called Bill's Story. I'll link it. You can listen to it on audio for free. The whole book is free on audio online. Or you can buy it. I had to ended up buying it because I was listening to it, but I was like, oh, there's so many things I want to underline. But in his story, it's just such a great, I'll just to share it with you. I wish you can read it in his own words in the document that I'm going to put below. But what his story is that he struggled. Well, first he started drinking because of the war, and they were going to go, and they were kind of celebrating that they're getting ready to go. And then during the war, he would drink because he was lonely and the things that he was seeing. Then when he got home, he was really excited because he had learned some really great skills, and he felt like he was really good at leadership, and he thought, I'm going to put these leadership skills to practice and I'm going to be very successful. And so he began to do that, and he got a good job, and he started investing, and he was really good at investing, so he started making a lot of money. He got married, and all of these good things were happening. But his drinking kind of started getting worse, and his wife started worrying, and she would ask him to stop, and he would say, okay, I'm going to stop. And he would try for a while, and then he would go back to it, and then he would try and go back to it. And his friends started noticing, and then eventually his boss was really worried, and he lost his job because of the things that happened, and he lost his money because the market went downhill, and all these things kind of made him want to drink more, but also he really wanted to stop so he could get a job, he could support his family. His wife was begging, and he kept making all these goals to stop. He signed, pledged his word, and he just kept going back to it. He ended up in the hospital a few times. The doctor finally said, if you don't, you only have a few years to live. Like, this is going to kill you. And he said, even knowing that and coming away with all this newfound knowledge and like these ways that I'm going to do this, eventually he would relapse, and he kept going back to it. And he wasn't sure what to do. And then one day, one of his buddies from from school back where he lived, calls, and from the war, I believe, calls him, and he says, hey, you want to get together? And he knew that this particular friend had also had problems with alcohol, had been hospitalized, different things. So he thought this will be good. We'll talk about old times, drown our sorrows in our drink, and bond over certain things. And so he was excited for this time with his friend. His friend shows up at the door, and he says there was something different about his eyes. He looked different, like something had happened to him. And I was curious. I invited him in. I offered him a drink, and he said no, which made me more curious. And I asked him what happened to him. He looked really different, and he looked like a changed man. And he said, well, I got religion. And he's like, oh, great, here we go. He was a quack about alcohol, and now he's going to be a quack about religion. But my gin will last longer than his preaching, so I'll listen to what he has to say. And so he said, okay, tell me what happened. And he said that he was at court, and he was getting ready to be committed for his drinking again. And the people said that, or a couple of people walked into the courtroom and said, hey, can you postpone his commitment? We want to try something with him that has worked for other people with his problem. It's based on a spiritual idea, and we think it will help him. And the judge agreed to let him try. And he told his friend Bill here, and it worked. I'm a changed man, and I wanted to come and share this with you. Do you want to know more about it? And Bill said, well, of course I was curious. I wanted to know what had changed this man who was just like me, completely powerless and hopeless. He said, I had no hope, to this man who had this glow and this obvious hope about him. So he wanted to know more, and that led him to having an experience a little bit later that helped him see a different way of being and a way to access that higher power. But he said the thing that really brought him about when he was talking to this friend was, he said, like the whole idea of God just kind of made him feel like, I don't really want to go there. I knew some religious people. I have some not very good experiences with religion. I think there's a higher power, but that's about as far as I can go. And his friend said, well, why do you have to have anybody else's conception of God? Why don't you create your own conception of God? Start from where you're at and build from there. And that kind of freed him. He's like, oh, I don't have to start from what other people tell me. I can start from what I believe and build from there. And that to him was a very liberating thought. And that's what he started to build his life on, and to start to get to know God from where he was instead of wherever anybody else felt or said where he was. And that story to me is really powerful, because it teaches us that we may not know exactly where to start, but if we start from with a hope in a higher power than ourselves, we can build from there. And so the challenge for today, day 2 of our 5-day challenge, is to ask ourselves, where are we and where can we start? And in addition to that, for those of you who already feel like, I believe in God, I have a good relationship with him, I talk to him often, I think like I'm developing and walking with him pretty often, is the additional part. And we're going to go into the connection tool that we're going to really delve into tomorrow. But there's these first 2 steps. Each connection tool, there's 4 in the program. We're going to talk about the first one in this 5-day challenge. It's the morning connection tool, and they all have a synonym, not a synonym. My mind just went blank. When you have the letters that remind you of what each one is. So the letters for this one are E and then A, B, C, D. And it would have been really nice if it was A, B, C, D, E, but E has to go first. So I put it at the beginning. We got E, A, B, C, D. And E is for empty. And so today we want to start practicing E and A. E, what I mean by empty, is that you just pour your soul out to God, to you, whatever your conception is of him. Start by pouring out your soul and what you're grateful for, the good things in your life, things that you've seen that his hand in, and then you can start sharing with them some of the negative emotions that you may have, some things that are holding you back, and then hand them over to him. I kind of sometimes like to do this in the form of a letter. So I'll start, Dear Heavenly Father, and I'll just start sharing some of my thoughts, pouring out my heart, because that keeps me focused. I have a hard time focusing sometimes when I'm praying and my mind starts to wander. But writing things down will often help me stay focused and just pour out my heart to him and just empty out what's there, especially those things that I don't want to have in my heart anymore. And if we get in the habit of doing this every morning, we can kind of start fresh, a new day without any of those negative things, emptying our heart and connecting to God, because gratitude is super connecting. And so if we can start out with emptying our heart and sharing our gratitude, that's really powerful. And then step number 2 is the A of the acronym. That's what I was trying to think of our morning connection. And A stands for ask. So a really important step, of course, in figuring out our path and knowing where to go, and our next step is to seek God. And we have to ask him questions in order to do that. And there's 2 questions that I think are really important for all of us to ask, daily if we can. And those are, first, how can I grow? Like, what would you like me to learn about or study or read about? Is there something that's been, on my mind that I want to start picking up and learning more about? And so ask him about your personal growth. What can I grow or learn or study today? And the other was about the growth of those around you. And so the second question is, how can I help someone else today? And maybe thoughts about certain people will come to you, something that you can create. So I like to think of something I can create or teach or share or serve in a way I can serve. And just start writing down any thoughts that come to you about something you can create or a way that you can serve or specific people that you can help. So those 2 questions, how can you grow today and how can you help others, are really powerful questions. You're sure to get some thoughts in your mind that you can start following through with or practicing trying. And as you do that, as you start developing this habit of emptying your heart every day and asking for your personal directives that day, some personal inspiration, it'll start to build on each other, right? That's how eventually I came to have the inspiration of writing a book. It came little by little as new thoughts would come into my mind, and eventually it became more and more clear as I would ask this question. And so those two questions and the emptying your heart at the beginning, those are the first two steps of our morning connection that we're going to talk about tomorrow. And I'm going to give you some little tracking sheets to help you remember tomorrow that you can print out to help you remember your baseline goal that you created yesterday, and these two questions, or these two first steps to your morning connection tool. And we'll learn the other three tomorrow that are also very powerful. So that is challenge 2 today, to share anything that comes to you as you listen to this, as you read the reading I'm going to link, or as you practice these two steps. I know it's kind of late in the day. I got to this pretty late today, so you might want to start tomorrow trying some of these things, or if you want to write about them in your journal tonight. And tomorrow we'll learn the next 3 steps. So you just share any insights as you did those things, or any insights you had from the reading or from today, and that's your challenge too. So I hope you enjoy it, and I will talk to you soon.